Ramirez or Gung? Gung or Mercer? Ramirez or Pedro? All these questions and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the CLC. Is everybody ready to go? It's proclaimed the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with Jay Dash, talking some Bucko baseball, specifically about the Pirates and their infield. Who should they go with? They got questions at third base. I don't want to call them questions. Options at third base, options at shortstop, and options at first base.
Second base apparently too now.
If you want to play A-Ram at second, you might as well.
Well, I'm saying Josh Harrison. A lot of people want to play Josh Harrison at second base.
Could you imagine if Polanco was still struggling too? It'd be ridiculous. They'd be playing people everywhere.
Well, that's the thing. Our outfield is pretty much set right now. You have
Travis
Marte.
Snyder touches the field in the playoffs, then you need to just stop watching the games.
Or as a pinch hitter or something, I'm not going to mind it as much. But I don't want to see him out there starting. Obviously, you want Marte, McCutchen, and Polanco out in the outfield, and I think that's pretty much set. And Cervelli, a catcher, is pretty much set as well.
How's his knee? He got blasted in the knee the other night.
Yeah, I mean, he looks all right so far. He's still hitting. He played very well yesterday, although they did end up losing. But, I mean, he's pretty much set at catcher. I know he's not going to play every day. You have to play Stewart some or whatnot. But
once the playoffs starts,
you're pretty much set there.
Likely.
But then you look around the infield, and there's so many different opinions from everybody about who should play and when they should play. And
I'll tell you who should play right now.
Who?
You got Harrison at third, you got Gung at short, you got Walker at second, and you got Ramirez at first. Depending on who you're facing, righty-lefty, you can play Pedro at first. It's done. That's all you need to know.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a possibility. A lot of people, I mean, it's not even a lot of people think. Jordy Mercer is definitely a better defensive shortstop than Jung-ho Gung is. And Jung-ho Gung is a very good defensive third baseman. Not that he's terrible at shortstop or anything. So a lot of people want Jordy Mercer out there at shortstop just because of the defense. I kind of agree with you, man. I'd rather have Gung at shortstop. I kind of want either Aramis, Ramirez, or Josh Harrison at third base. I mean, that's a question as well. And I want to play Pedro against righties still. I know he makes errors on the field. He played better for a while after the All-Star break. Wasn't making errors for a while. He made a couple recently. I don't really give a crap. It hasn't cost them any games. I mean, they played Sean Rodriguez at shortstop. You want to play him there? Well, he cost them a game. So they're probably not going to put him back there. I don't see Pedro costing them games defensively, and he's their biggest power hitter. I want to see Pedro in there versus righties at least, although he's hitting lefties pretty well as well. But, I mean, from what I've seen from Ramirez at first base so far, I have no problem with a platoon of Aramis, Ramirez, and Pedro Alvarez at first base. It looks like a pretty decent platoon to me, but I see them sitting Pedro Alvarez now and playing Aramis Ramirez at first base against right-handers as well. And I'm not so sure I want to see that. You're taking your biggest power hitter who has been hitting as good as he has in his life over the past month or so and putting him on the bench because he makes a couple errors on the field. I just don't like that at all.
All goes back to the Pirates just hate Pedro.
Yeah.
They hate him.
Hurdle seems to hate him or
That's
something.
It, I'm telling you.
But that's just not what I want to see. I want to see Aramis play against lefties possibly at first base and then play him at third base some days against right-handers if you want.
I like the platoon with Ramirez and Pedro. I wouldn't mind if Pedro didn't play versus lefties or righties, quite honestly, you know what I mean? But, like, we both know that Ramirez isn't going to play after travel days. You know, he's going to need extra days off. And so I don't see Pedro being completely phased out.
Well,
I think they're just trying to have the best bats in the lineup, you know, at the same time. What I don't like is when Hurdle sits everybody in the same game. Why does he rest everybody in the same game? Or
it's
I mean,
tough.
You know, can't he spread it out? One day one guy, one day another guy. Like
some guys like that method, some guys like the all-in-one-day method. So you put your best lineup out every other day instead of one less than your best lineup every day. You know, I mean, it all depends on what you like, I guess. But there could also be the possibility that Pedro was sitting against right-handers as well because they were playing Cincinnati. You remember we did that segment where we were talking about the Pirates' struggle against the NL Central, and Cincinnati was one of the teams Pedro really struggles against. So maybe it was just because they were playing Cincinnati. You've seen against Milwaukee, Pedro was back in there, although it was a travel day too, so we'll have to see moving forward if they really do want Aramis Ramirez as their everyday first baseman with getting a day off every once in a while for Pedro, or if it was just because Pedro doesn't hit Cincinnati and they decided to give him a few days rest. I hope it's that, because I want Pedro's bat in the lineup, and that's one of the reasons this offense has been so good as of recent.
Do you think that maybe they have kind of conceded, although they won't admit it, to being in the wild card spot, and they just wanted to get Ramirez some work to get him ready for the playoffs, and they're not necessarily planning on sitting Pedro as much as it seems like? They just figured, A, with the struggles he has against Cincinnati, B, we got to get him sometime. It's kind of a crash course, you know what I mean? If you're going to play him at first in the playoffs, to me, you got to get him in there as much as you can in the regular season. And I know that sacrifices Pedro's bat and a chance to catch the Cardinals, but if they kind of feel like that has almost waved bye-bye, then they're more concerned about, the future as opposed to the next maybe 20 or so games.
I mean, the way you say it, it sounds like a possibility, but if they conceded this division already, I think that's a mistake. They're only 4.5 back right now still. There's enough time to catch the Cardinals. If they'd have won last night, they'd be 3.5 back. They still have 3 games against the Cardinals. There's no way this division's over yet. So if they're thinking that way, I think that's a mistake. But, I mean, it is a possibility. If you're going to use Aramis Ramirez in the playoffs at first base, you got to get him as much time as you can right now. And really, I thought they were going to start this a little earlier. They were working him at first base and whatnot, and then reports came out they're pretty much done with this. They're not going to do it. And then the next day, he's at first base. Yeah. I didn't know what was going on with that.
And the last thing I'll say about it is, if they're going to take Pedro out for any other bat, at least it's Ramirez's bat. He's the only other person on the team that can come close to the power and RBI production that Pedro... I'm not McCutchen, but you know what I mean? You're not putting him over there. But Morse, he's done well, serviceable for the Bucs since he's come here, but he's not as good as a bat as Aram. And Ishikawa and Rodriguez, I mean, come on, they're not a better bat than either one of us.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Actually,
I know, maybe not.
Rodriguez has been hitting better over the past month or so, but...
Yeah, but he's not a Ramirez or Pedro as far as power.
That's the thing about this, though, is a lot of people were complaining earlier in the season that they don't like our bench. We need better bench players. We need people that we can start on our bench. And that's hard to do because it's hard to have starters on your bench. But then the Pirates went out and they got starters and put them on their bench. And now people are saying, oh, we want the same lineup every day. Well, you can't have it both ways. If you bring in starters to sit on your bench, you have to find them ways to get them involved nearly daily in your games, and you have to start them some. You can't have it both ways. You either got to have bench players or you got to be starting 12, 13 different people and spread it out over a week. You got to decide which way you want to go, and they decided, you know what, we're going to build up our bench and put starters on our bench. So you're going to see that there's no possible way they can put 9 players out, the same 9 players every day with the bench they have.
That goes back a little bit to my earlier point. The Pirates have such a good bench. If they only sit one guy at a time, I don't think it's a drop-off. And I know if you have 2 or 3 quality ones, and you get the same thing said. But sitting one guy at any of our positions really is not that much of a drop-off. I mean, you sit McCutchen, yes, nobody's as good as McCutchen is at center field. But you slide Marte over to center, you stick Harrison out in left, and it's not really that big of a difference.
Well, how about second base? I know Neil Walker is their starting second baseman still.
I just wouldn't tinker with it.
Well, listen, he doesn't hit lefties very well this season. Would you consider putting him in a strict platoon with Josh Harrison and bat Harrison against lefties to get him that playing time, give Walker some rest? I mean, it does. I still like Walker against lefties. I know he hasn't hit him well. He hit him better last season, though, and I still believe he has it in him. But I don't mind playing Harrison at second base either if that's the way they feel like going.
I wouldn't hate it, but I'm just kind of a big proponent of Walker. I'm a big fan of his. He's probably been the most consistent. I don't even know if I want to say consistent infielder, but he's the one guy that we really haven't tinkered with his position other than it's a day off. just needs some rest.
When they first had him, he was a catcher, and then
right.
they moved him
Oh
to
yeah,
third
way
base.
early. I'm talking about this year though. In the infield this year, we've been mixing and matching at first. We've been mixing and matching at short because Mercer got hurt, and we've been mixing and matching at third with all the options we have. But we always stayed steady with Walker because he brings you that steady play. We didn't think his power was going to be as good as last year. It slowly creeped up to right around the same range. It's not as good. He didn't have as many home runs as he did the year before. But he's just one of those guys that by the end of the year, you look at all his numbers and you're like, wow, he did it again. Pretty good player, solid defensively. You never really have to worry about him. But Harrison is around the same talent, so I wouldn't hate it to give him a day off or platoon him. In a situational thing, especially in the playoffs, you do whatever it takes to win that game. And if you think that that's going to help you win that game better, then yeah, definitely.
Well, here's the thing. If Aramis Ramirez is going to be playing first base and Mercer's going to be at shortstop, there's one person I'm not taking out, and that is Jung-ho Kang. So he's going to have to play third base more often than not. So that leaves Harrison on the bench most days, and you're going to have to find them ways to get into the game. And one of the best ways is to platoon him with Walker, whether it's a strict platoon or just sometimes or whatnot. But that's the best way to do it, because I don't want to ever take Kang out. I know you're going to have to give him rest every once in a while and whatnot and put Harrison in for him. But like I said, I wanted Pedro first, so that leaves Ramirez and Harrison for third base, and I want Kang at short. I mean, Kang has to play every day, so the only option I see for him is at shortstop. But again, people like Jordy Mercer at shortstop because of the defense. So it's just so hard to set a lineup in this offense because of so many options. But what was your projected infield?
I wanted Harrison at third, Kang at short, Walker at second, and Ramirez at first.
So that leaves out Pedro and Mercer.
Yeah.
Is that it? Or is there somebody else left out too?
No, that's it.
I mean,
I wouldn't mind Pedro as a pinch hitter. I wouldn't mind him as a platoon at first. He's hitting all right, but I don't.
Okay,
I
well,
don't
let's
value
say
Walker's.
you have to play Pedro sometimes in my mind. I'd play him against righties all the time. But let's say Pedro is playing. Do you move Ramirez to third and then Kang over to short? Do you leave?
Yes. I want Kang at short all the time. I put Ramirez back at third, and I take Harrison out of the lineup.
See, it's just too much for me. My head's been beat in over this, and I can't put anything
I think our best bats
together.
are Ramirez, Kang, Walker, and Pedro probably as far as power in the infield. So I just don't know. But Walker has been steady. You know what I mean? He's been so consistent all year long. And, he might have struggled a little bit against lefties, but this guy's just done it for me throughout his career. So I like him at second no matter what.
Yeah, when we're facing righties, I'm going to say Pedro, Walker, Kang, and Harrison would be my favorite. If you're going with the defensive positioning, then Mercer and Kang at short and third, respectively. But if you're going against lefties, I wouldn't mind Ramirez at first, have Harrison at second, maybe Mercer at short and Kang at third. I don't know. Any way you do it,
I want Ramirez in the lineup basically because he's the best cleanup hitter we got. He's comfortable in the situation.
I mean, he has been hitting well recently. He got off to a slow start, but then, he's actually produced. I've seen as many at-bats as Marlon Byrd had last year. Ramirez actually had more RBIs in the same amount of at-bats with Pittsburgh, so he's actually been playing very well. A little under the radar, though.
Yeah, but that's what I like about the guy. He's just quiet. Just does it. He doesn't bird call every time he hits a home run. Brrr.
Fans, let us know, though. Leave us a message in YouTube or send us a tweet or whatever. What infield alignment do you want? Because, like I said, everyone complains that they want the same lineup in every day, but that's the same people that complain that their bench wasn't good enough and they needed more starters sitting on the bench. So, and you can't have it both ways. So it is going to be a mix and match, but when it comes down to one game against a righty or one game against a lefty, who do you really want to start in that game?
In the lineup or pitching?
Well, I'm asking fans. I know your answer. You already gave it to us. I'm asking the fans what their answer would be. Like, if it came down... Well, I'll ask you again. If it came down to one game, we know your outfield, we know your catcher. who would be the 4 starters against a righty?
Ramirez, Gung, Walker, Pedro, I guess. I don't know.
So you got Pedro at first base. See, that's what I like too.
I hate him in
makes
the
sense
field,
to me.
and I hate saying that.
Well, you can make a defensive replacement later if it's a close game. You know, I mean, he's...
In a one-game playoff, he just has that potential to crush one out of the stadium.
Yeah, I hear you. And let's not forget, he kills the Cardinals, too. And
No.
if you can make it through that one-game playoff, how can you not want to play Pedro Alvarez against the Cardinals if you go into the series with them? Unless you're facing a lefty, maybe.
He also has the potential to swing and miss so hard that the bat flies out of the stadium, out of his hand. So I'm not saying that I magically think Pedro's great. But, I mean, he's the best power bat you got. I think Ramirez is the best cleanup hitter you got. And, obviously, the outfield's set. And I don't like moving Walker around. And Gung, you can't take him out of the lineup. He's jung-ho.
Yep, Jung-ho, Rookie of the Year, hopefully still. He's still got a chance. He's hitting something like, what,
I think he should
288,
have...
15 home runs. This guy's having an excellent season.
I think he's getting, not necessarily hated on, but looked over because he's older and he came from a pro league. So some people are thinking he's technically not a rookie. But that's beat.
Too bad.
But that's all we got for you today. Thanks, fans. Leave some comments on Twitter at bet_the_spread or betjimthewin. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube. Keep clicking subscribe. Bucko Fever.